Hey everybody, welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Lamar Darnell Shields.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of the day is that you're listening to me. I just want to say I'm honored and grateful that you decided to spend some time with me. I don't know why you're listening, because I don't do anything great, but I think I know why you may be listening, because you've seen or heard or read, or you've stopped by the sound bombing community before and you notice that I have some amazing guests who are doing some amazing things. Or you may like the show because you think I ask some good questions, or typically I'm rocking some clothes that you all like to check out. So today I'm rocking just my blue hat and my blue shirt, nothing amazing. So welcome back. If you are new, thank you. If you're an old bomber, bomber means healing, not bombing, not blowing anybody up. And if you are new to our show, we always start out with what I call the breath of life. And what that does, it allows us to create a strong foundation for the space, because I don't know what type of energy you bring into my space, and you don't know what type of energy I'm bringing into your space. But let me just tell you, I'm bringing positive energy. So my old heads, they know what time it is. So get in your comfortable position. Put your feet on the floor, palms facing up. Eyes slowly close, head looking straight at the camera or at the computer. And we're going to do our 3 breaths. Inhale, hold it, and then exhale. 2 more times. Inhale, hold it, exhale. We're going to go a little deeper. Inhale, hold it, exhale. Bombers, what is that called? That is called the breath of life. So thank you. Meditation and mindfulness has been important to me for a very, very long time. So I am not new to this. I have always enjoyed mindfulness and meditation. It keeps me balanced. And most of the people that I bring onto the show support that. So if you listened to the show last week, you know that I had Taylor and Nicole on. They were amazing. They're life coaches. I love their gear that they were rocking, their gear, the clothes that they wear, typically when they go out to do life coaching, or they just want to just show off some of their branding. But at any rate, we had a serious conversation with them. We talked about trauma-informed care. We talked about how we can keep ourselves safe during COVID. And so if you did not check them out, you missed something amazing. But if you didn't, today you're here with me right now. So I'm so grateful. So let's get down to business. Sound bombers, there's one sure way to tell when someone is not good with money. And even when they feel like they're really nailing it, it's not having lots of student loans or credit card debt, it's not making a low income, and it's not lack of financial goals. The numero uno indicator that someone is not good with money, borrow it from me. No. The number one indicator that someone is not good with money is when you always have an excuse for why you can't better your financial situation. People who are not good with money can justify just about any bad financial decision. And the excuse usually revolves around something that happened to them, meaning it wasn't their fault, it was outside of their control, and there was just nothing they could have done to change it. Therefore, they had to spend money, or they couldn't have saved it, or they had to take on credit card debt to get through it. And we know because we're in a financial crunch right now, many of us are not doing a good job of managing our money. We know people are being laid off. We're dealing with a whole lot of stuff. And then some people are masters at this kind of justification. They're so good, in fact, they're fooling themselves. I don't know how you can fool yourself to being broke. I don't know how you can do that. But it's not that they're trying to lie or avoid. They truly believe that all the bad financial decisions they make are completely out of their control. Something always happens to them that prevents them from succeeding. People do this all the time with all sorts of things in life, not just money. We make excuses for ourselves because sometimes that's just a lot easier than owning up to a mistake or facing down a big challenge that might feel a little overwhelming. If there's an excuse, there's an out. The problem is those excuses will ensure that you stay stuck and struggling until you step up and own the fact that you do have the power. Let me say that again. You do have the power to, even in the face of challenges or adversity, to move forward, and you can. And today's guest, the great Bob Wheeler, is going to talk about that. He will help us to maneuver through terrible, you hear what I said, terrible money-making decisions and help to steer us on the road to financial freedom, as well as inject and explain his love relationship with comedy. And those know I was married to a comedian, so I got a lot of things I want to ask him. But as a man of true integrity, this guy, Bob Wheeler's energy is infectious. He's a crusader for personal growth, as cross-pollinated with the accounting practice to create a new approach to personal finances. His passion is to help others gain insights about how their emotions trigger financial decisions, combining finances with behaviors. Bob explores his personal concept of creating a healthy relationship with money in his recent book, The Money Nerve, Navigating the Emotions of Money. While strengthening his accounting practice, Bob has simultaneously pursued his love of satire and ventured into the realm of stand-up comedy. From his 30 years of helping clients, Bob has distilled a concoction of warmth, humor, information, motivation, budgeting. But what I also love about him, because I've been to this place, he is also currently the CFO for you get ready, the world famous Comedy Store in Los Angeles, California, in the Hollywood area. Bob has traveled all over the country, has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I can't even get that out there, Bob. He has trekked Mount Everest Base Camp. He has traveled all over the globe and being funny and enjoying it. But what's cool today, my man Bob is joining me in the bomb shelter. Bob Wheeler, what's up, homeboy? Welcome to the family.
Hey, man, it's great to be here. Love to be here. Love the energy.
Oh, man, first of all, the Comedy Store, we're going to get to the Comedy Store. You know, money, it should have been called Money Ain't Funny, because I'm sure you met a whole bunch of comedians who lost a whole bunch of money, and we're going to talk about that. But I also discovered that you went to the Great Rose College in Memphis, Tennessee. Well, I would say the home of Elvis, but people don't really know that Elvis is really not from Memphis. He is from not one Tupelo, but Tupelo.
Tupelo.
Bob, I got a little comment in me. He is from Tupelo. Bob, first of all, how are you doing with the pandemic, and how are you holding up health-wise and just emotional?
So I've been doing really well. I think there were a couple of weeks there that it got a little tough because it kept seeming like it's going to be over in any moment. It's going to be over. It's going to be over. And then, it's not going to be over. But I fortunately, I'm considered essential. And I've been able to keep coming into work, working with a lot of people with a lot of fear, and just really being able to be of service and also be able to be distracted from having to sit at home 24 hours a day like a lot of people are having to do. So yeah. I feel blessed.
Well, thank you for passing on some of those blessings. I'm receiving that. Let our listeners know where you are calling in from.
I'm calling in from Santa Monica, California.
Santa Monica, California. Beautiful.
Can't go to the beach.
Can't go to the beach, yeah. I mean, but let me tell you, Florida lost their mind. California, y'all were teetering on losing your mind, but I think some people woke up. I mean, the thing is, it's kind of, the beaches are great, but the energy, you want to be around people, you want to talk, you want to engage. It can be somewhat scary. So, man, I'm glad you are in a safe place. Man, I have tons of questions for you, because I know my listeners like, how in a ham sandwich did this guy go from the stand-up comedy, working in the Comedy Store, then talking about financial stability therapy, probably because you don't work with a whole bunch of comedians that you know that were up here, then all of a sudden they came down.
That's right.
Here. But before we get into those comedians, let's talk about you, Bob. Tell me a little bit about yourself, man. How did you get started? Where you originally from? What was your love with comedy? Before I get into all your books and all of that stuff.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Tennessee, and so I had that Southern influence. And then, but my parents were from California. And so I had a little bit of West Coast in me. And I actually was going to be a lawyer. I didn't want to get into accounting, but it was an easy A. I just took accounting so I could keep up my grade point, like most people, right? And a little bit of Latin. And then, I didn't like the attorneys. And accounting was something that I enjoyed doing. And so I got into that. I was also out in LA doing comedy, mostly workshops initially, until one of my friends said, could you stop just doing workshops and actually get up and try to be funny? And, I sort of liked it, hidden away. And I realized doing stand-up in an accounting office is probably not going to get you discovered. So I actually started doing comedy and I loved it. I got fortunate where people actually laughed at me for a bit, or with me, maybe would be better. And so as I was doing comedy, I got called in. Mitzi called me up and said, this is Mitzi Shore, and I heard you're a CPA, you got to come help the club. I'm like, okay. And all my friends were comics, so I wanted to make sure the club was still around so that everybody could perform. All my broke comic friends and myself. And for me, I got into this money stuff because I was on my own personal financial journey. I was doing a lot of financial self-sabotage, and I was making a lot of poor decisions, even though I was making really good money. And people that were in lesser positions than me at the firm were doing much better financially. And I started realizing it wasn't just about, you make a lot of money and then you're good. No, it's about the stories we create. It's about the belief systems we have and self-sabotage. And having a lot of comic friends that weren't making a lot of money had to look at the starving artist theory. And I really just started an exploration of my own and started talking with other people. And
I love that story. Now, before we dive into the current work that you're doing, and it's kind of cool because, again, people may know you as a comic, but you have this financial background and sort of where you're going. Let our listeners know, give us a history of the world famous Comedy Store, because I'm somebody out there has been under a rock their entire life. They aren't familiar with the world famous Comedy Store. And then if you could, because we were talking about stories, please share some stories and insights on the storied history of the world famous Comedy Store.
Well, the Comedy Store has had its ups and downs. It really got its start when Johnny Carson moved over to LA and started bringing in comics. But Jimmy Walker helped bring people into the club back in the 70s. Oh my.
Good times.
Good times. And, so many people that came after him, Jim Carrey, Richard Pryor, kept us on the map for a while. Jay Leno, David Letterman, Roseanne Barr, Sandra Bernhardt, Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle.
That's a serious list, Bob.
I mean, it's Craig T. Nelson. Like, so many people have come through those doors. And man, it's like Gallagher smashed his first watermelon at the Westwood Club.
Yeah.
I got to be on this documentary, and he was so worried. He was saying, Mitzi called him up and said he was going to smash like something, and they couldn't find anything. So he took a watermelon and he smashed it. And the next day he gets a call. Mitzi says, Gallagher, I heard you smashed a watermelon at my club. And he was like, yes, ma'am. She goes, well, you better do it again. We're sold out. So like Cheech and Chong got their start at the Comedy Store down in La Jolla. And it's getting to meet George Carlin, hanging out with him and just a lot of amazing people. Look, the club's had its good days. It's had its bad days. I remember one time we were having a Friday meeting. I had $4,000 cash for the bank for the weekend. And Mitzi asked me to run and do something. I left. I came back. Somebody stole the money. And I'm like, Mitzi, we had no money at that time. We could barely cover $15 checks to the comics. And I was like, Mitzi, somebody took the $4,000. She said, well, it was probably a comic. They probably needed it more than us. We'll get by.
Wow.
So, she just trusted. It's always been an artist colony, and she's just tried to create a home that was a place for the misfits that found their home at the Comedy Store.
So you've met tons of comics. I mean, you watch people go from nobody to rock star status. You watch people go from rock star status to then have to come back to nobody. Is there a comic, and I know this may be hard, is there a comic that had one of the greatest impacts on you as a person? And it might not be their stand-up. It might have been behind. It's like I said, I was married to a comic, and I spent a lot of time with people. And some people I just want to love from a distance. I want to know them on stage and not off stage. Well, I'd rather know them off stage than on stage. Is there a comic that just sort of just resonated with you that we may not know about that comic, or there may be someone that's very popular that we may not know something about them?
Well, so there's three comics that come to mind. George Carlin I love because he speaks truth.
Yes.
And criticizes. Paul Mooney is probably somebody that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, him and the Mooney twins as children. I'm familiar with the Mooney twins. Paul Mooney, relationship with Richard. I got a little comedy history, Bob. I did a little research, brother. Go ahead.
All right, that's good. Paul Mooney is I think one of the brightest people around. I think he just scared people because he was like, he's smart. He's dangerous. He's got knowledge. But I could sit and watch Paul Mooney talk for hours. I mean, brilliant man. He drinks a little bottle of champagne. He would drink while he talked. And Bob Newhart, again, he just was so dry. He could get up and say, he worked for the sales tax department of California, the Board of Equalization.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he'd get up and read sales tax code. And, but I think for me, people that speak truth and people that can educate through humor are what I'm drawn to. Because I find that when people can teach me through humor, my defenses are down, and then I can sort of laugh at myself when I realize, wow, I'm being a jerk. I didn't even see it. And so I use humor myself to disarm people and try and get some information to them.
Wow. I mean, great way. You gave us a really good list of comics who have a variety of approaches to stand up, and then also different races and different cultural backgrounds. So that's really, really important. I really appreciate that. So let's talk about your work in the finances. What prompted you to write a book about money and emotions, and not possibly write a book about stand-up or comedy?
Well, funny thing is, I was sitting in the main room of the Comedy Store, and a friend of mine came in, and she was in tears. And I said, what's going on? She said, oh, I just saw my family. They're all doctors. My dad's a doctor. My brother's a doctor. My sister's a doctor. And they were just shaming me because I chose to be a comic. And I said to her, Sean, you're not the only person that didn't get the financial download. And there's a lot of people that you look around and you probably think they have amazing lives, but they probably have it worse than you do. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, most people don't know how to handle their money. They just present very well. And she was like, this is unbelievable. And that, along with just hearing other stories of my other friends and my own personal journey where I had been self-sabotaging based on some decisions I made when I was 5 or 6, I thought, I just want to start having conversations around money to start removing the stigma of shame that we didn't all get the download. Our parents didn't know what they were doing. Our grandparents didn't know what they were doing. And if they did, they were just trying to survive and maybe could teach us a couple things. And so I wanted to really just start having conversations around money, because most people don't come up to you and say, oh my God, I just filed bankruptcy. This is fantastic. My credit card debt is $75,000 and climbing. It's not the kind of stuff we share. And I wanted to let people know that they weren't the only ones that struggled with financial decision-making.
Why is there so much shame, Bob, using your word? Why is there so much shame around money and not having it or not having access to it and or mismanaging it?
Well, I think culturally in the US, we really push that successful people are rich people. And that's how we measure success. How many houses do you have? How nice is your car? And so I think it's a false sense of self, but I do think that our culture really pushes that. And I think what happens is a lot of people, we don't learn the basics when we're in high school or in college. Most of our parents don't sit down and tell us why we can't have a certain toy. They just tell us, if you don't stop asking, I'm going to spank you, or, right? They don't actually have conversations. And so we, as children, often see our parents fighting around money, or money is stressful. And then we don't want anybody to know that we haven't got it figured out, because a lot of our parents were pretending that they had it figured out, or trying to keep up with the Joneses. Yeah. And I think culturally, we just really have pushed that, rich people are successful.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because you're in a world where, like I said, I've been in this space, not as close as you have, where you look at these comedians and they are social media, they're doing stand-up, they're performing, and you think that they're making all this money. You think that they're making a lot of money. One thing I love about Chris Rock, he used to always go back to Caroline's in New York. Caroline is probably like the sort of for the East Coast, which you all have on the West Coast. And people don't realize that comedians don't, when they come to those clubs, they don't really make a whole lot of money, because you just said it, we have $4,000. And then Misty said, hey, maybe a comic needed before. Do you think that people are putting on this facade and they want to carry it as if they do that? And then not only does it set them up for failure, but then the people that are behind them, that are observing them, thinking that I can come on stage, get a lot. Like I think about Robin Harris. We talk about success. Robin Harris from Chicago, where I'm from. Sure, Robin Harris. He, when Robin Harris was in California, I can't think of the club. Because it was a club where all the entertainers in a rough neighborhood, and people were coming down to see him. And then this guy just blew up. Didn't make a whole lot of money, but success to him was being on stage all the time.
Right.
And so you're in that space where these comedians are walking around as if they've made it, and then you read the paper and then they're gone. Do you ever provide any of those comedians any financial assistance at all? I mean, not financial support, paying them, but any, because you're like, no, you're making more money than, just any financial advice rather.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting, because I was doing comedy, I was doing sketch comedy and stand-up. A lot of my initial client base were comics and actors, and then became directors. And so a lot of my client base is entertainment. And so I am giving a lot of advice to a lot of people, because I do have these clients that were, making $5,000 a year, and now they're making $2 million, or actors that were just getting bit commercials and doing local plays, making, $100,000 an episode. And, it's sort of, wow, I'm making all this money. And then having to remind them, you're living in a bubble, may not last forever. I hope it does. But we can't spend every dime like it's going to come in forever. Start saving, start doing practical. We do a lot of stuff with, my clients will say, oh, I want to go buy a house. No, don't buy a house, buy a duplex. So you got some income coming in. Buy a triplex. Let's be smart about this. And so, I work with a lot of entertainment people and try to help them plan for the future, because it's a crazy business. Entertainment, and there's no guarantees. Just like right now, nobody's performing,
no guarantee,
shows aren't being recorded, and people are hurting, and most of them would just be happy to get up on stage and have voice.
It's interesting you would say that, because I was thinking about D.L. Hughley, and I think he might have been in Tennessee when he fell out on stage. He was at a comedy club, and I'm saying to myself, people are still in comedy clubs doing stand-up. And it wasn't a big, DL is huge. He's been to your place at the same time.
It was Zany's in Nashville.
There we go. I knew it was Tennessee. And it wasn't a big crowd. DL has radio. It wasn't a big crowd because people were hesitant. And DL still has resources coming from other places. So I was still blown away that people would actually come out. You're right. I'm wondering, what are people doing? These creative people who are stand-up comedians, who are sketch comics, writers, TV shows, singers, entertainers. What are your friends doing right now with this time?
Well, some of them are just going to darker places, unfortunately, because it's hard, and a lot of people just want a place to express. It's a difficult time. I mean, we're going to do some outdoor shows, because La Jolla will let us do outdoor in the alley, and people are saying, I'll come down for free. Like, these are national headliners. Don't pay me. I just want to stage. I just want to connect with people. It's not the same being on Zoom telling a joke. You want to have that interaction and the energy of the audience. And I think a lot of people are missing that connection. And, I keep telling a lot of my clients, look, take this opportunity to write, to just find other ways to
use the time wisely. Yeah.
Use it wisely.
Tom Bilyeu. I don't know if you know Tom Bilyeu. He's out of California. He is a inspirational speaker. He has a show called Impact Theory. He owns I cannot. Of course, I just lost it. He owns this power bar company, and one of the things that he said during this time, learn a new skill, do something different. I know it's humbling. It's humbling for all of us, Bob. For us not to be working. I'm an educator, and I had to wait for schools to figure out that I've been in this virtual space for years, so it's not new to me. But they had to catch up to where I was, and it was humbling, man, not having the income coming in. But it's about being creative, because it's going to end. The reality is this is going to end.
It will end.
It is going to look different. But what have you done and sacrificed? So speaking of that, for those folks who are in this situation, and that's everybody, we have listeners all over the globe, and I'm so grateful for that. What advice do you have for them to not only just about being creative, what should we be doing, or what we should be mindful of when it comes to our money? Because you've heard of this concept. This was an emotional purchase. This was the emotional purchase. I purchased this car as emotion. So how do emotions impact financial decision making? And what advice do you have for folks who are struggling right now during this pandemic with the small amount of money that they have?
Yeah, well, absolutely. The first thing I would say to do, which you said at the beginning of the show, is to breathe, right? I'm telling everybody, just breathe. We're going to get through it. And to actually use this time to start looking at your cable bill, looking at your credit card bills, looking at your spending. What don't you need? What can you give up? And really encouraging people to hold on to the cash. Right now, cash is king. So if you can make a payment plan on something and pay low interest, like work it out. So until we sort of know where things are going, and to just really analyze. And I know people hate the word budget. A lot of people do, but really, like, a budget's a great informational tool. And to be able to say, wait a minute, I don't need premium cable. I don't need Hulu and Netflix and HBO on the go. And to where can I scale back and still feel like I'm having my needs met or my wants met? I think that's the most important thing. And then the other thing is, what are those projects that you've been wanting to do? Paint a picture, write a book, write a novel, write a play, record a podcast, whatever it is. Like, take the time and direct your energy there instead of just sitting around and creating dark stories that are just going to take you to places that aren't probably healthy.
And what roles do our emotions play when it comes to financial decision making?
Well, emotions are such a big part of it. I think a lot of it actually stems from fear of making the wrong choice, fear of not looking cool, fear of being caught, fear of not being enough. And so when we're making decisions, this will make me feel good. I'm going to buy a bunch of stuff, and then I feel good because I got to buy a bunch of stuff on credit, but I got to buy a bunch of stuff, and I look cool when I pull out the credit card. So I think I think for a lot of people, am I worth it? Am I deserving? And so if I can spend or show people the outside world how I appear, then maybe somehow I'll feel a little bit better. And I don't think that really happens. I think we still, if you've got a void, you've got a void, and spending more money is not going to fix it. So learning to just be happy with what you have instead of what you don't have, working from a place of gratitude, I think is an important component, and really actually starting to look at, what do I have? Oh, wow. I've got a relationship. I've got children. I've got a shelter over my head. I'm able to eat, some base, I can breathe, cause there's a lot going on in the world right now. There's just, even besides the pandemic, I think we're being forced to reevaluate and look at the way things have been.
I'm doing the same thing, Bob. I just shut down my office, and we're building a studio in my home. When I did the math, the guy who was building, and it's not like he's trying to take advantage of me, he's a good friend. He said, if you do the math, he said the amount that you were paying in rent, I can build you a space here, and you can save a ton of money. So again, I think I needed the office. I want to bring people into my office and show them around and allow them. I was gifting them space and things like that. So I too have walked down that road. But then when I walked into my house, I have this basement. I know you want to you're on the West Coast, bro. Y'all don't know.
Yeah, I know what a basement is.
You know what a basement is, right? So this, it's under the house. Like, what is under the house? It's like talking to my daughter, like, what is a cassette? Like, I remember, Bob, I rented a car. I'm always renting. If I have to pay for a rental car, believe me, I'm going with the cheapest. So my daughter was in the back seat, and she said, it's hot in the back seat. I'm like, well, put the window down. And she said, with what? And I'm like, with that little thing right there. And she didn't know what that little thing right there was, that it took the window down but in my basement, we're building a studio because I can do all my stuff there. My daughter's a musician. She's not going to be going back to school. And so she can perform, she can practice. So again, it's about being practical. Would this be what you call in the readings that were sent to me? Is this financial therapy? Am I learning that? Because I know the concept. And can you sort of break down? And then if I need to lie on a couch for therapy, I can do that right now, as long as I can get it done for free.
Well, always you can get it for free. I think that everybody needs a bit of financial therapy. We really need to understand what our stories are. I think so many of us are attached to our stories. And, one of the things you set up at the top of the conversation was that people are feeling like, oh, it's not my fault, and other things are the reason why it isn't happening. And so we become financial victims, and we become passive instead of being intentional and taking action and being proactive. And so a lot of people love to be right in their story. Life never works out for me. I never get the good breaks. And oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's the saddest story ever. The reality is, if we would just pick ourselves up, learn our history, understand why we're making choices. I spend this money because it's in opposition to my father, or I spend this money because it reminds me of my grandmother, or I don't want to do this because it would negate what my grandparents or my parents told me. And so we have these stories that we created when we were young, and now we're still living off of decisions that we made when we were 5 and 6. And so the more that we can start to go, oh, that's why I do that, or, oh, this really makes me angry, or this is where I get humiliated, then we can learn to navigate through that. There's certain things that make me angry. So I hate calling the IRS. My staff calls the IRS because I'm not very nice to them. They're like, you're condescending. Click. I get nothing done. So that's not maybe going to change, but I have my staff call. They're nice. And then the IRS is really nice to them. But, finding those places where you have, where it's not your strength, and then finding ways to mitigate that so that you can move through it.
So speaking of finding your place, you found your way to one of the most beautiful continents. And I have to let people know Africa is a continent, not a country. Yeah. What happened in Africa that changed your beliefs around money? And what was her name? No, I'm just playing. And did you marry her? No, what happened?
We have
you got a couple of kids, 20 kids, yeah.
20 kids, and it's amazing.
So what happened in Africa? What you about to say?
So here's what happened. I was in Tanzania, and I've been to Zimbabwe and Botswana. And,
Bob, hold up. We didn't ask you to brag. I've only been in 2 places, homie.
Come on. You got to get back over there.
Come on, man.
I love Africa. I love Africa. It's one of the most.
So my engineer, my producer is from Liberia. Nicole, you've been communicating with.
Oh,
so
wow, from Liberia. That would be a fun conversation.
Yes.
For people that don't know, Liberia has ties to the U.S.
Very, very distinct. And then what's interesting, her story, people don't realize that in the 80s and 90s, man, really 80s, there was a coup. And just not to give her story away, she had to be airlifted out of Liberia.
Wow.
Her uncle was killed by a firing squad. So it's real, man. There's beautiful parts about it, but people don't really know the connection of that. But yeah, she is from Liberia.
Wow.
And when because again, she does all this research. She's like, ask him about Africa and where did he go? And so what happened there, man?
Well, so I was in Tanzania, and we were walking around, and the average income in Tanzania at the time was about $100 a year. Wow. $100 a year. That's less than $10 a month. And these people were happy. These people would give me the one shirt off their back. These people, and I kept saying to myself, wait a minute, you're living in huts. It doesn't look fun. You don't have running water. You maybe get to take a bath once a week. I feel spoiled if I don't get it at least once a day. Mm-hmm. And, they weren't driving nice cars. they didn't have cars. They were running from village to village, and they were incredibly happy. And it just messed with my mind.
I saw that when I went to Haiti, Bob. Same feeling.
Yeah, and I kept going, wait a minute, but I get to go home to my Mercedes because I just gotten a new Mercedes, and I was really excited. And what I realized was that, and I think we live in a vacuum in the US where everything's about having nice things instead of coming from a place of gratitude, coming from a place of community, coming from a place of how can I serve other people? And I think it ties to your philosophy of your teachings, right? That it's like, who am I without other people?
Ubuntu, yes.
Yeah. And so I was just blown away. And when I got back, it was just, I started looking around going, wow, I have not been very grateful. And I don't think I've been that humble. And it blew me away at, regardless of the obstacles, regardless of what they had in terms of material things, they had so much gratitude and so much happiness and so much community and willing to help other people. And yeah, it was a game changer for me.
So we're going to go from Africa now. I want you to follow us on over to Nepal. Now you talk in all the information that was shared to me, you talk about baby steps. We're going to leave Africa. Now tell us what happened in Nepal, which I love Nepalese food. All the places that you're going, I love African cuisine. I love Nepalese food. What happened in Nepal when you were trekking to base camp going up to the Camp Everest?
Yeah, so and I love Nepal. I've been there a couple of times.
There you go, bragging again.
I know, I had to put that in there. I had to go there twice. And the people there are amazing and kind and work their butts off. I mean, incredibly hardworking people. So we got over there. This is my second trip, and it's not cheap going to Nepal to do all this stuff. It's a $5,000-$10,000 trip. And I brought some friends over. We trekked the first day. You have to go down into the national park. You hike down. It's rough. And about 3 hours in, my friend said, let's quit. Let's just go back to Kathmandu. This is freaking too hard. You didn't tell me it was going to be hard. Like, it's only the first day. They're like, no, my knees hurt. This looks big. The mountain's way over there. I'm out. I'm not doing this for the next 17 days. And, here I am in this moment. I'm the leader. And I said, let's do this. Let's just negotiate to hike another hour. And then at the end of the hour, we'll negotiate from there and decide if we're going to go home or not. And so what we ended up doing the first 3 days, every hour, we would time it. Everybody's like, we got 5 more minutes. And we would sit down and we'd say, are we going to keep going or do we want to turn back? And doing that in baby steps really taught me something. It was digestible. We weren't looking at the big picture that we had to get to this big mountain. We're just trying to get there. And the way I look at this, the way we interact in this country, probably in a lot of places, we're all busy trying to get from A to Z. And if we could actually just focus on getting from A to B and B to C and C to D, we'll probably get to Z a lot quicker than trying to find that fast track that's just going to get us and have to avoid all the work. You could probably fly over Mount Everest and it's not going to be the same as having hiked to the base camp and had to go through the pain and go through the joy of beating all the odds.
Where does that perseverance come from, Bob? Where does that perseverance for you to overcome these obstacles, traveling outside of the country, not looking like, let's be real clear, you don't look like the people in Nepal. You don't look like the people in Africa. You don't look like the people in many of the countries, but somehow there was this level of connection. Where does that come from? Because it's carrying over into your financial work and also into your stand-up.
Well, when I was a kid, we were not allowed to watch TV, and I read a lot. I read so many books, and I read about kids in South America, and I read about kids in all these other countries. And, I remember reading about this kid in Peru and had his llama and climbing through the mountains and the Andes and stuff like that. And thinking, man, these sound like very interesting people and like all the things that they have to do. And so I think I got a real appreciation for really different cultures and just the human condition, human beings, that we're all connected, no matter where we're living or what situations we're in. And so I just have this, I love connecting with people. I love learning about other cultures because I find that actually makes me a better person. It widens my perspective. I'm so grateful that I've gotten to travel and learn that everything isn't done the way that I did it.
And that's so reflective in your writings, man. I looked at your posts, your thoughts about Black Lives Matter, your post about just loving one another, your post about being honest about you as a white male in this country, your post about just other artists. It really, really shows up. And one of the reasons we wanted to bring you on, and not just to also talk about finances, but just about your humanity and connection to others. Because again, our show is not about bringing on celebrity just to talk about celebrity. Now I could bring on Kevin Hart and say, oh, we know you're a great comedian, but I want to know, Kevin, what do you do in your free time? How are you giving back? How are you eat? Yeah. Those are the things I think that shows the real human side, because it's human side of an individual. We can Google all that other stuff. So when Nicole and I and Alex, my engineer is from Haiti, when we're researching these individuals, we look for people with just very unique stories, because again, bringing a person on just because they're a celebrity or they made all this money, I mean, it's okay, but what is your story that makes it so unique? And one of the things that you've done is you've written this amazing book called The Money Nerve, Navigating the Emotions of Money. You talk about emotions. Can you talk about that book? Why did you write that book? And what should people expect from that book? Once they close it, once they get to the last chapter and all your thank yous, how should they walk away feeling?
I hope that people walk away empowered, and I hope people walk away knowing that they didn't do anything wrong. Like that, hey, I did the best with what I had, and now I know better. I mean, I love Maya Angelou says, do the best you can, and when you can do better, do better, right?
Man, you are the third person today. I have 3 interviews. Listen to me, man. You are the third person that has quoted Dr. Maya Angelou. She is, wherever she is in this universe, she is smiling because, again, you are the third guest that we had on today that has quoted her, man.
Well, she's a powerful, brilliant woman. So it's hard not to quote her. But I think when people read this book, I want people to start to let go of the stories that they've created about themselves, maybe have a little bit of compassion and forgiveness for their parents, and not place the blame on them, and to really actually start to make conscious, intentional choices, really listen to what they're saying so that they can't get caught up with, I'm so broke, I'm such a victim. No, I'm choosing this. I made these choices. At a certain point, we're adults and we're responsible for ourselves. And so I hope that people will take away from this that the relationship with money is a personal relationship. It's not about how many millions you have. It's learning to, again, come from this place of gratitude and choosing to be happy, choosing to make proactive choices. And actually, I believe that we all want to have an impact on the world. I believe even the meanest, evilest, whatever, deep down, like if you could take away all the layers, that we all deep down want to have a positive impact in the world. I believe we all want to be in connection. And I believe that we all want to have a legacy, that we all want to, that people look back and say, man, Lamar, what a man, like, look at what he did. And so what I want people to do is to really focus on making intentional choices, get out of story, and start living their truth.
I love that. Now, you do so many things. You working with an organization. I'm glad the comics are coming together to perform because we all need a laugh.
We do.
When does Bob Wheeler have time to do stand-up, and where does the inspiration for your material come from?
So, fortunately, I can go down and perform at the Comedy Store. I go to La Jolla because that's the sister club. We have a club down there, and I can go down there and not be the CFO. I mean, I'm the CFO, but I get to be more of a comic. When I'm in LA, it's like, hey, sign my check. Hey, not quite as fun. Or, coffee houses. But for me, the source is to being able to laugh at myself and being able to name those places where I'm judgmental, where I'm sometimes a little bit arrogant, sometimes where I think I got it figured out and I don't. So I really like to self-deprecating humor. I'm the guy in the grocery store that's counting the number of items when it says 15 items or less. I'm counting and I'm judging you if you've got 16.
Can you also say something about that little stick? That little stick has a lot of power, doesn't it, man?
It does.
That little stick, if that stick is not right there and it crosses my apple or banana, man, you can fight. And you can't put your arm there. That stick has so much power. So I want you to talk about that too.
Well, you know what? Listen,
If
if the person in front of me doesn't put that stick down, you better believe when I do, I'm judging them and I'm sending them really bad energy. How dare you not put that's the rule, and push your cart forward. Right? It's like, I mean, and that's like, and for me, this was true. I used to be I grew up with a bit of trauma. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was very, when I went into a store, I was mortified as people were, oh, you bought a shirt. Oh, you bought underwear. What do you like? Oh my God, they're judging me. And so I would go into grocery stores and I'd get all my groceries when I, finally was living on my own, and I would just leave. I wouldn't go through it because I'm like, oh my God, they're going to judge me because I bought the celery. I can't. And, so I had issues. Grocery store issues, but that's what we do, and it's being able to find that stuff and own it, and being able to say, yeah, this is where I'm not so good. This is where I make mistakes.
So Bob, I'm a new comedian stepping on the stage for the very first time. I want to make a career out of this. You've seen everybody. What advice do you have for a comedian who's just getting started, buddy?
Well, I think if you're going into comedy to be rich and famous, you might want to rethink your priorities. You're not going to get rich and famous right out the gate. You might, highly unlikely. I think if you're going to do comedy, do it because it's your passion. Do it because you want to bring laughter. Do it because you want to see you want to make people feel good. Not do it because, hey, make me feel good about myself. Hey, build me up. Because it's not the audience's responsibility to like you or make you feel good about yourself. So I think it's important that you do it because it's really your passion. I can't imagine, even if I'm not on stage, I'm always in a comedic mind. I'm always analyzing. Part of me is always like, that's interesting. Yeah. And I do it because I love it. In some ways, for a lot of comics, I think it's therapy. At least it was for me. Yeah. And do it because it's your passion. And I think anything you do it because it's your passion, not because it's like, oh, this is going to get me somewhere quick.
What's the one thing that you notice that all comics now, all is a strong word, but that, many of the comics have in common? What's a trait that you notice about all of those comics that you've come in contact with?
Well, I think that the trait that I think all comics have it is the ability to observe and state the obvious. And like, if you're not able to, like, I talk to friends, and it's hard to go to a comedy club and just sit and watch other people. Cause I'm like, no, I'm not an audience member. That's not me. I don't sit. I don't want to sit. And so I can still watch other comics, but just being an audience member, that's not for me. But observing, and I remember one time I was getting ready to go up down in La Jolla. It was a packed house, and this woman gets up from the audience and just starts screaming. She's drunk out of her mind. I hate everybody. And and the audience is like, oh my God. And somebody goes, yeah, good luck, Bob. I'm like, she just killed the vibe in the room. And I walked up and I just went, thank you, Mom. I love it. She always comes to my shows, but she never stays. Right. And everybody just started laughing.
Woody, quick thinking.
It's quick thinking. And, you don't just go, oh no, nothing happened. Nothing happened. You name the obvious. And I think that's what comics have the ability to do, is to see the things that other people, it's everyday kind of stuff, but we're naming it, and you go, oh yeah, that is pretty funny.
So what has failure taught you about finances, and what has failure taught you about comedy as well? Bombing on stage.
Well, bombing on stage, I think was probably more painful. I was doing really well, and then I had this one set that went terrible. I was in this competition, and it was, and it was supposed to be really clean material, and everybody was doing really not clean material, and I was the last comic, and I was doing all my Disney clean stuff, and boy, I did not go over. And I was pretty new to comedy, and I couldn't tell a joke for the next 6 months to save my life. And I finally went to a coffee house, and people thought I was hilarious. I could have recited the alphabet, and people were like, "Oh my God, you're brilliant. How'd you come up with that?" And what it taught me is don't give up, right? That failure is temporary. And I actually look at failure as lessons. Okay, that didn't work. Let's not do that again. Let's try something different. For me, the whole point is to just keep getting up and keep trying. The failure is not getting up and keep trying. And I like to think, I mean, I probably am, but I like to think that I'm unstoppable, that like, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to be a force to be reckoned with until my last breath. I want to keep showing up and keep trying to figure it out. And I'm going to keep moving forward.
All right. Well, Bob, I can talk to you forever, man. You've been a blessing and a joy, making me laugh, making me feel good. Being in a comic's ear and being in this space and knowing all the people that you work with is an honor to me, man. And before we get out of here, is there any final financial advice that you have for our listeners? And then how can our listeners get in contact with you to purchase your book and then to do any work with you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think what I would say to people in terms of financial work to do is, are you happy? Are you happy with where you are? And are you happy with the relationship you have with your family, with whatever? And are you willing to be uncomfortable and do the work? Like, you got to be willing to be uncomfortable. You got to be willing to take in some information that doesn't feel good before you can actually change it. So like, do the work, get uncomfortable, get some feedback, and really have a conscious, intentional life. And that's what I would say about the finances. People can find me at Bob at TheMoneyNerve.comOn. And you can reach out to me via email, social media. We're on all that stuff, Twitter, Facebook, the whole gamut. We're not on cassette. But yeah, I love talking to people. People can reach out. I love doing this work, and I love seeing people have aha moments and actually making significant changes in their lives. And
go ahead, finish.
Well, it's just about showing up.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of showing up, when are the shows going to start taking place again at the Comedy Store? The ones that you said they're going to be outside. When is that?
The ones in La Jolla are going to start actually this weekend.
Okay.
We're going to start doing shows in the alley. Mm-hmm. And then LA right now is completely shut down for all indoor venues. So we've got a parking lot. And so we're doing podcasts and things from the parking lot, so people at least can get semi-live entertainment. Okay.
And where could they go to see that stuff? Should they go to the Comedy Store website?
ComedyStore.com. All that information is there. And please come down and support and have a drink and a box of fries. And, it helps the comedians. And I know they're all ready to get back.
Got to support the world famous Comedy Store.
Absolutely.
In California. But Bob, before you leave, my favorite part of the show is called the Super Bomb Questions. And these are variety questions that I ask all the people that come onto the show. So I'm going to throw them out really quickly, and we want you to respond as quickly as possible. Okay. Let's go, Bob. Let's go. What's your favorite word?
Gratitude.
What's your favorite quote?
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes. What's your superpower?
Forgiveness.
What's your spirit animal or animal spirit?
Tiger.
What brings you to tears of joy?
Seeing people happy.
What brings you to tears of sorrow?
Injustice.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
Connect with everybody in
a
meaningful way.
In any way. Okay. What deceased person would you most like to meet and get advice from?
John F. Kennedy.
What is the book or books you've given most as a gift, and why?
The Power of Focus. And I give that book because it talks about breaking down how you can actually be intentional and make things happen with a very, very specifics. It's a very practical book.
Okay. What is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made?
Best investment is getting education, like not just college education, but like learning. courses, workshops.
We like to find out the routines of some of the most highly effective people on the planet. So what is your morning routine like?
So for me, I like to take a little bit of time in the morning, whether it's walking my dog, whether it's just sitting and doing a little bit of meditation and affirmations. I really am a big believer in mantras and meditations and really setting intentions for the day.
Now, I probably should know the answer to this, but it may be something different. If you were in the Mr. America talent competition, what would your talent be?
Well, I would hope, I'd like to think it's comedy. Somebody else might be different, but yeah.
Well, Bob Wheeler, man, thank you for joining me in the bomb shelter. Thank you for bringing a level of laughter with there's so much pain going on right now. So Bob, thanks for joining me today. It's been a blessing to talk to you.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, Lamar, and I wish you so much success. I love all that you've done and do, and I hope you keep bringing it.
Well, we also want to thank my amazing engineer, my Haitian brother, Alexander Blanc, my African sister, Nicole Klimpaka, Supremacy for our theme music, and all of you for listening. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, stop being stingy, share me with all of your friends. I'm on all the social media platforms. If you want to know anything about what I'm doing, if you want to purchase, yes, purchase some merchandise, go to drlds.com. If you want to know more about me, you can find information about me there. And as always, believe something wonderful is about to happen. But some people miss the message because they're too busy looking for the mess. Thanks for tuning in, and do something for someone other than yourself. You are listening to Sound Bombing, and make somebody laugh like Bob Wheeler. Maybe we're going to close the show with some stand-up from our latest guest, Bob Wheeler. Peace.
One of my other jobs is do a lot of commercials. Actually, let me rephrase that. I do a lot of auditions. My manager called me up, though, the other day. He was really excited. He's like, Bob, got this great print ad for you. Great print ad. Men's Health. You're the before picture. Nice. And so I went down, didn't book it, but you know, it's sad when you're not even good enough for the before picture. It's LA. It's LA. Oh, it's all right. I have a therapist. It's okay. You need one. But my other job, I'm an accountant. Yeah, not funny, just information, right? So, you know, a lot of people were saying, hey, Bob, why don't you just give up the stand-up and just do the accounting, you know? Maybe it's a little bit better. And I'm like, guys, although accounting is my passion, it's who I am, it's really the stand-up comedy that's paying all the bills. So I'll stick with that. You know, the thing about accounting, like, see, I love accounting because, like, I get to hold other people's receipts, right? Ask really personal questions.